I want to talk to you about a concept called role modeling. This is an idea where staff and teachers embody the very behaviors they expect to see from their pupils. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of entrepreneurial role models, certainly not at school. And actually, the most accessible role models were from television. I remember that there was a television show called Only Fools and Horses. I'm really showing my age here. And the two main stars, Del Boy and Rodney Trotter, two hapless but lovable traders from Peckham, were really the only options available to an aspiring young entrepreneur. Traditionally, we see the corporate ladder as the obvious and acceptable face of work. Get a grad job in a prestigious firm, become a partner, maybe even become CEO. To say you want to start a business, launch a venture, start something new, that would often be greeted with skepticism. Don't do that. That sounds pretty risky. You might fail. That response has always troubled me. Actually, I find it downright odd. This is a country with a very rich heritage of enterprising behavior, and yet we still turn our noses up at entrepreneurs. Napoleon referred to this country as a nation of shopkeepers. That was intended as an insult, but I actually think it's a badge of honor. If you pop down to Spitalfields Market, any given day of the week, you'll find traders, inventors, entrepreneurs, exhibiting the exact fabulous behavior that Napoleon was mocking. Where did we go wrong? Entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of the economy. They start ventures, they create, they revitalize high streets. And yet, they are not given the credit they are due. I think this began sometime in the 80s or 90s. If you said you were an entrepreneur, you'd be associated with hustle culture, yuppies, wheeler dealers like our Del Boy. I think this perception is changing. The corporate ladder no longer looks the way it did 20 or even 30 years ago. Disruptive technologies are fundamentally changing how we actually activate the world of work, how we access it. We're seeing that the standard analyst job, the graduate entry job, no longer exists in the form it did. We have to be more entrepreneurial. I found this photo of my first ever business, which was a young enterprise company called Loki. This student business I set up with my friends, named after the Norse god of mischief, not necessarily the best name for a reputable seller of sterling silver keyrings with your school's logo emblazoned all over it. But the point was, where as other teenagers would be up to the usual antics, we were spending our weekends and evenings working on pitches, selling, discussing our next sales strategy. How are we going to sell even more keyrings? And it wasn't about the modest amount of money we made from this endeavor. It was about the shared collaboration, moving towards a goal together, overcoming obstacles, and unwittingly developing an entrepreneurial mindset. We talk a lot today about the issues facing young people, the pernicious impacts of social media, the desire for meaningful connection. Entrepreneurship naturally delivers a lot of the things that young people crave: a sense of belonging, a purpose, collaboration, working together. And it was my experience at school that really launched me on the unique career path that I ended up on today, culminating in the development of our award-winning Start It program. After university and school, I went on to work in a variety of different startups, selling anything from smoothies to poetry. Yes, you can sell poetry. Haikus, 2 for a $5. Sonnets, a bit pricier. An ode, well, that would cost you an arm and a leg. Pretty sure anypoem.co.uk is still out there somewhere. Ultimately, though, my friend Frank and I set up a restaurant business called Poncho 8. This was right at the height of the Mexican wave of burrito restaurants hitting the UK at the time. Pun definitely intended. And this was us on our very first day before trading. We'd prepped the shop, we'd invested hundreds of thousands of pounds of our investors' money, spent hours overcoming unimaginable obstacles just to get to this point. And we still hadn't sold a single burrito yet. There was no guarantee anyone was going to turn up at all the next day. But thankfully, they did. And this is what being an entrepreneur is all about. Taking risks, doing your homework, of course, to ensure you minimize the possibility of failure, but ultimately getting to a point where you have got something that can be successful. We ended up creating several more units across London, and ultimately were acquired by a major food group. Frank continues to be a restaurateur to this day, very successful indeed. I elected to go into education. Not the most usual career path, but this is what I'm talking about. I was rather dismayed by what I saw. It'd been over 10 years since I'd left school, and there'd been no real progress in entrepreneurship education. There was still no system for providing entrepreneurial skills to a whole population of school children. Just one or two standalone programs, maybe a handful of students participating in them, and usually only from one single year group. This was a major problem. Because entrepreneurship, it's not about business. It's about life skills. Having an entrepreneurial mindset is about being adaptable. It's about being resourceful. It's about resilience. It's about persuasion. It's about managing money with discipline. And all these elements were still missing in a joined-up sense from our curriculum. It is no surprise that, to me at least, that we are seeing over 1 million people who are NEETs, not in education, employment, or training. This is an extraordinarily alarming figure. And for me, it's very closely connected with our education system. There have been some efforts to address this. We are seeing Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales begin to develop entrepreneurial curriculum in their education frameworks. Still very limited. But there is still no dedicated entrepreneurship strategy in England. Nothing. How can that possibly be? This is a major, major problem that needs solving. So, I decided to build a curriculum for entrepreneurship. The Start It program was born, and the idea behind it was very simple. Create a series of workshops, events, lectures that progressively build up the skills required to develop an entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial skills. We also want to create a culture that causes entrepreneurship to thrive. We want our young people clambering over each other to take part in the events we put on. We start with basic financial literacy. We build up, providing opportunities to conduct SWOT analyses, feasibility studies, eventually developing full products and launching businesses, gaining experience in fundraising and investor relations. For me, this is an essential part of our future. We have had so many fantastic products come out of this system over the last few years. I thought I'd share a few examples with you. Hex, a 3D printed beehive and bird feeder, modular system for urban gardens. Last time I checked, this sold over £4,000 worth of stock. Verge of doing a major deal with a wholesale supplier. We have Halo X, a safety toy integrated with an alarm that was featured in the Sunday Times and national press recently. All about improving women's security, especially in cities at night time. We had Shorelight, a company who designed an auto-adjusting brake light for bicycles. It had an inbuilt accelerometer, could detect when you were braking and increase the luminosity of the bike light accordingly. All designed to reduce traffic accidents between cyclists and motorists. Finally, Grounded, a team that created journals with compostable pages. If you'd had a bad day, write down your negative emotions, rip out the page. It's embedded with wildflower seeds. So you plant those negative emotions and watch them grow into a beautiful bluebell. That's amazing stuff. For me, this represents the astounding potential from our young entrepreneurs. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've seen hundreds of young businesses come through the Startup program. And we still only have this program in our local area and community in London. Just imagine what would happen if we scaled it up. A few images behind me show what the next step is. Because if we're serious about generating an entrepreneurial nation, we can't just stop at school. We have to put in the structures in place to allow these phenomenal businesses to continue. This is why we also have set up an incubator to provide early stage funding and mentorship for some of these fantastic businesses. We don't just want them to stop after school. We have to create a pathway for them to continue. We partner with venture capital firms, provide entrepreneurial fellowships, work with leading institutions in the field like the London School of Economics. We have an angel network that takes high net worth individuals from our community and connects them to our entrepreneurs, allowing them to raise significant funds should they deserve it. And this is what this is all about for me. Not just individual areas of entrepreneurship, standalone courses, but a joined up curriculum that demonstrates a clear pathway for any young entrepreneur should they be willing to undertake the risks. I see the Startup program as a model for a national ecosystem that consistently delivers high-level businesses and founders. That model starts with entrepreneurship education. We have to have specialized teachers with entrepreneurial experience, role modeling for our young children. This creates more entrepreneurs. It reduces their chance of failure because they've been given the skills to survive. We connect these young founders to established businesses and entrepreneurs who can then provide them with further mentorship and funding. The young founders go on to become the successful entrepreneurs and reinvest in entrepreneurship education and the entrepreneurs of the next generation. This virtuous cycle is what our country needs if we are serious about addressing the 1 million young people who are currently in need. I think the popularity of the Startup program is evidence enough that we are onto something special here. If young people are willing to give up their summer holidays, to come back to school to hear from expert speakers, we have children from 8 to 18 giving up their lunch breaks to hear from recent leavers who are just starting on their entrepreneurial journey. That is role modeling. Not hearing from old teachers like myself, but peers, their fellow classmates. This is what I'm talking about because it's tangible, it's relatable, it's so easy to connect to. Entrepreneurship education shouldn't be sitting on the margins of our school system. It needs to be at the center. We need to develop a curriculum that embeds it at every level, and it needs to be accessible to every child, not just to the lucky few. I'm not saying that every child should grow up to become an entrepreneur, but I'm saying that every child deserves the opportunity to maximize their entrepreneurial potential. I think our society needs it. I think our economy needs it. And I think our young people want it. As Del Boy said, well, he was right about a lot of things, not the dodgy watches, not the three-wheeled van, but the mindset. Del Boy was onto something there. The belief to back yourself, to create something from nothing, to overcome hardships. If we can inculcate that spirit of entrepreneurship in the next generation, we won't just create more entrepreneurs. We'll create a more confident, creative, and resilient society. Thank you very much.